Hello everybody, how's Karen and the kids? How's Estelle doing at the bingo tournament? Today we're going to be talking about Jay is doing something. Now I've actually talked to this guy before and you know he's pretty chill. Also, just so nobody gets mad, as if I betrayed him or something for not bringing this up to him privately, I'd like you all to know that it's called content. It's called content and I'm in dire need of it. Anyway, Jay gave me this introduction in case nobody is familiar with the channel.
Hi, I'm a stupid, dumb, leftist, liberal crybaby. Wah.
So the first video we're going to go over is titled, Can You Hear Trump Supporters?
Keep your rifle by your side.
Back on.
By a show of hands, who would not vote for a candidate if they threatened our Constitution and democracy?
That's a really good opener. I mean, like, because, you know, they're both immediately not gonna know what to say. I'm calling it. They can't. Because they're not gonna know what to say. You can't know what to say after that.
If they threatened our democracy?
Because if they're Trump supporters, they know that bro absolutely threatened democracy.
You heard it here first, guys. The party, known for its love of guns, perhaps even obsession sometimes for guns, decided to stage an insurrection, a government takeover, without bringing any guns. I'll definitely concede that there were bad actors in that event, but to suggest that this was somehow this huge threat to democracy is ridiculous. You know what is an actual threat to democracy? Removing people you don't like from the ballot, silencing stories that might hurt you politically, and having the FBI raid people who had very little to do with anything violent. To assume this is some violent insurrection, as if Trump didn't tell everyone to protest peacefully, as if the police officers didn't just let people into the building, etc., is to be willingly ignorant of the situation. I guess the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone isn't an insurrection, or the summer of fiery but mostly peaceful protests after George Floyd died isn't a threat to the country, but a bunch of boomers wandering around at the Capitol Hill is somehow an act of terrorism.
That Biden took over during a crisis, and now inflation's back down to a healthy economic figure.
Yeah, inflation is back down. People were just like, no, it's not. It's like, it literally is. Like, that's just factual. People just tend to forget that Biden took over during a crisis, and they blame it on him for no reason, as if it wasn't bad when Trump was in office before Biden took office. This seems like random ass people.
Joe can't take credit for lowering the inflation that he spiked himself. In 2020, it was at an annual inflation rate of 1.4%. He took office on January 20th of 2021, and in 2021, annual inflation rate was 7%. And now we're at 3.2% so far this year. The whole month of January of 2021, the inflation rate was 1.4%. So you really can't blame this on the previous administration as if he actually inherited a catastrophic event.
Thank you for ruining my life!
Ashley!
What did you do?
Everybody's always blaming me for everything.
For someone who claims to dislike Biden, you sure do like defending him a lot. On top of this, I'd argue Biden inherited the conclusion of a crisis, with the unemployment rate dropping dramatically from 14.8% in April of 2020 to 6.4% by the time he's in office, and the trajectory to keep decreasing throughout his administration. But as you can see, even though it did drop to 3.5%, the rate is starting to increase within this year, hitting 3.9% in February.
Grab him by the
Dude, these people have seen this before, right? Come on, they've seen it.
That was pretty gross.
That is gross. But what does that have to do with politics?
I don't know. A guy's like, hey, when you have power, you can sexually assault people. Okay, what does this have to do with giving him power? Everything!
I mean, yeah, that is grotesque, but it really isn't that deep. He's just saying women will do anything with him. It's locker room talk. It's not like he was being very public about it anyway. And of course it's not pleasant, but it's definitely not criminal. And I've been in your Discord server, bro. You cannot be talking.
Okay, you have to understand that when you make the argument, well, you had Black Lives Matter, that means you have to be okay with Black Lives Matter. You understand that, right? If you're okay with the murders on January 6th, then you have to be, because, well, I mean, you're okay with the murders and Black Lives Matter. Okay, then you also have to be. Because, no, I'm not. I'm not okay with either of the murders. There were murders. There were people did die in Black Lives Matter protests. Mostly from police officers making shit worse, but sometimes they were started on their own. Yeah, no, I don't condone those. And neither do you, and since you don't condone those, you also shouldn't condone the murder of Ashley Babbitt and others.
Alright, I'll give you credit, you actually addressed what I was talking about before. But not that well, if I'm being honest. You can appeal to someone's hypocrisy to discredit their claim. That is an absolutely valid thing to address. Blaming the police officers for making things worse, though, is insane to me, considering the lack of police intervention when everybody was rioting and looting, burning cars down, you know, all the peaceful, wholesome activities that happened in the summer of 2020. How are the cops forcing people to burn and riot exactly? And another thing, there were as many as 2,000 law enforcement officers that were injured during the 2020 riots and at least 25 people killed. On top of this, plenty of businesses were burned down and burglarized. This is all just destructive behavior, all of it, apparently. Apparently it's because of the cops. You mentioned Babbitt and you tried to use moral equivalence to justify disliking both the January 6th thing and the BLM riots, because by acquitting them both, you can say Donald Trump actually planned an insurrection, which is just untrue. You mentioned Babbitt, and that is a very sad and unfortunate passing. Alright, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay her death. But that is literally one person that actually died to violence, and she was one of the protesters. 3 of the other protesters died by natural causes, and 1 died by taking drugs. You're comparing literal criminal activities with malicious intent to a genuine protest that had some bad actors. Again, I say this, there was no attempt at an insurrection. Otherwise, all the gun-loving Trump supporters there greatly outnumbered the police, and the conflict would have escalated very quickly, to say the least. The point they're trying to make is, you guys conveniently ignore how much awful stuff happened in 2020 and complain about how blown out of proportion it was. Oh, it was just sensationalism, it was mostly peaceful protests, etc., instead of addressing how it actually was. Violent riots and an actual insurrection when Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, was established and a portion of Seattle was literally being occupied. Anyway, that's enough of that. You spend the rest of the video ranting about democracy. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna just keep repeating myself and what I said, because it'll just be annoying for both of us. So on to the next video, I guess.
Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling.
The fact that people try to deny that that's what happened is hilarious, because he's so open about it. You truly have to want to believe it, because it's that in front of your face. It's that in your face. Either that, or you watch absolutely nothing but people who are indoctrinating you.
Simply put, Trump wants to kill the bill because Biden doesn't need a bill to do what needs to be done. Biden can easily issue an executive order to secure the border, but instead, he wants a bill to be passed that also sends foreign aid within it, using the border issue as sort of a Trojan horse. It's a pretty basic concept, really.
Migrant comes across the border. That's one migrant too many, and your bill doesn't do enough to completely shut down the border.
Actually, it does completely shut down the border in many ways.
It does. It would. It shouldn't. I disagree with the bill. The bill is awful. The bill, if you read it, would just shut down the border. But no, it's like, oh, well, actually, I didn't make the bill, therefore it's flawed.
No. If you actually read the bill instead of watching Hassan Piker explain the bill and soy-facing about how similar it is to some random anime.
We think the Houthis, Ansar Allah, is doing what Luffy would do. You should tell him that.
It actually says that illegal immigrants can still be let in, but only at ports of entry. I'm so gonna butcher this name. Kirsten Cinema. Okay. Anyway, a big supporter of the bill says that the president would only have to shut down the border when the minimum of 5,000 illegal immigrants passing through the border per day has been met, and the president only has the option to do so when the number of encounters is at least 4,000 each day.
Our country's ever had.
How can you say he's the worst president our country has ever had when we've had Nixon?
The SALT I agreement, which helped foster talks of disarmament between the US and the USSR, says otherwise. He also put relations between the USSR and the US in a state of detente, and he started the process of Vietnamization, which started the slow decreasing of American troops in Vietnam. On top of this, his proposed plan for nuclear energy would have had us self-sufficient with renewable energy. So I think he did a lot of good. I mean, sure, he took us away from the gold standard and that whole Watergate thing, but he didn't do that terribly, honestly. And spying on a DNC convention, while it's bad, it's really, it really pales in comparison to what plenty of other politicians have done, honestly.
We've had Buchanan. He's so uneducated in history that it is crazy that he's running for president.
It's actually not being uneducated, it's called hyperbole, and I'm sure you've done it before too. Anyway, speaking of Buchanan, he sucked with his handling of the Civil War, but I highly doubt he could have prevented it, and ultimately, he was hated for his lukewarm position right before the Civil War, with the North hating him for enabling secession, and the South hating him because he didn't adhere to their demands. So was he one of the worst? Yes, I'd say so. Is he worse than Biden? Hard to say, considering the murky and tumultuous time in which he was president. I mean, of course, he also did protect slavery within his presidency, which isn't good, but you can make the case that Lincoln did the same thing when he allowed slave states to keep their slaves as long as they didn't secede.
I'm glad the bill didn't pass, but we know it will pass. Trump wins, he goes in, passes the exact same fucking bill, says it's different, and everybody passes it. Biden wins, he passes the bill, everybody goes, it's not like he can win again anyway. Sure, we'll pass the bill, and the bill gets passed. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Trump might convince Republicans not to pass it if he loses a second time, but I don't think he will. I doubt Trump will be able to convince them again. The bill's getting passed. It doesn't matter. Either way, whoever passes it is going to get passed after this election.
No, Trump won't pass anything. He'll just sign an executive order like Biden should have done. The problem Biden has is that he knows he can sign an executive order. He's just trapped now because he can't say, well, now I can magically sign one after me telling you all I couldn't. He would lose his chances of re-election if he signed it. So, funny enough, Biden is the one that's drawing out the border issue for political reasons. On top of this, Biden straight up tried to prevent the Texas National Guard from defending the border and setting up their own precautions for border security, seemingly because it made the border security bill less relevant.
I'm saying it anyway. Not for a second is Trump even gonna consider helping something good in his eyes happening under the Biden term.
That's wild, considering Trump's Operation Warp Speed literally overlaps between administrations, and in the same month that Biden was inaugurated, his press secretary announced that the program was going to be replaced with a White House COVID-19 response team. Trump very well could have shut it all down before inauguration, but he didn't, and the result was the Biden administration taking all the credit for the vaccines. I'll spare everyone the terrible Trump impression, but you can check out the video in the description if you so desire. Now on to the next one.
And whatever. And I think this story was designed to represent the idea of Christianity. It fits too perfect in this metaphorical sense for what I'm about to say to not be true. The Adam and Eve story is Christianity. The apple is the truth, which is there is no God. For a long time, they lived in ignorant bliss. God wanted his people to live in ignorance because apparently it made them happy. That's why most atheists are on the side of Satan in this story, and most Christians are on the side of God, because most Christians have taken the side of God and followed the ignorant bliss, while most atheists have bitten from the apple and learned the truth.
No, actually, it's a story of free will, and the apple is the knowledge of evil. God gave Adam and Eve the choice to either obey or disobey him. To suggest that mere knowledge is the sin here is ignorant. See Luke chapter 2 verse 52, and I quote, "And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man," end quote. Meaning he did pursue earthly knowledge to some extent, and Jesus being infallible means we could do the same thing without sinning. God warned Adam of disobedience, and Adam disobeyed regardless. In this moment, Adam and Eve felt shame for what they had done, and they wanted to hide from God. This was when they noticed their own nudity, and when they actually felt what it was like to be evil.
People are on the side of God in this story, because they believe that Adam and Eve are a lot happier, not knowing anything, not being sad, scared, and humiliated by their own nakedness. So they should have stayed that way, stayed stupid, and not eaten the apple, because it made them happy.
they should do some research into lobotomies and removing the frontal lobe. When that is done, you will lose your ability to fear. There was a case of a man who was having a reoccurring nightmare of these monsters chasing him and hurting him, and he was terrified. He got a lobotomy because of this reoccurring nightmare, and he had the dreams again, but this time he was petting them and he was playing with them, and he had the inability to fear after that. But, as you can imagine, that makes him stupid. Not fearing a murderer in your home is a stupid thing to do. It makes you dumb. But, while you might be dumb, you'd be living in ignorant bliss. So, if you truly believe that ignorant bliss is the way to go, then you should get a lobotomy. You likely do not want to do that because you want to keep the knowledge that you already have. That is because us as humans crave knowledge. If you don't want that lobotomy, then you agree, at least to a certain point, that you do wish to have knowledge.
The notion that science and religion are exclusive to one another is just a fallacy to me, honestly. I mean, if you look at history, a lot of scientists were Christian.
The idea of atheism somehow being an easier life is laughable. We go through life knowing that there is nothing after this. There might be, but we don't know. Maybe it's painful. It's a little spooky. Not for a lot of atheists, because a lot of atheists have gotten used to that thought. I, someone who has only been an atheist for a few years now, have not gotten used to that thought. I've been an atheist since I was 14 or 15, give or take, and I am now 17. The idea of nothing after death is still terrifying to me. Death is a lot scarier since I believed in Jesus.
That's not a great selling point for your worldview, but I would make the argument that you do have an easier time because it's a nihilistic worldview, and ultimately it leads you to justify anything under the sentiment of, it doesn't matter what I do, I'll die anyway. Being an atheist is one thing, but being opposed to religion is just nonsensical to me because without it, there really is no purpose to existence. Atheism is just the justification of releasing all of your inhibitions because according to you, there aren't any consequences after your death. I'd also want you to consider the fact that it's probably a lot more stressful when people that believe in God see other people that don't, and they're thinking, well, they're going to be doomed to hell. So, I mean, I think it's a lot more stressful than nothingness, than just dying and just not existing anymore. If I'm being honest, you know, I don't know.
Next, I'm going to talk about morality. This is another big thing people talk about. If God isn't real, then nothing is objectively wrong or right. Correct. I think this proves that they do not believe in God because they find it rational. They believe in God because it sounds more welcoming and warm. No, nothing is objectively right or wrong.
Moral subjectivity has to be the most brain-dead thing you can believe in, honestly. You literally can't make any more arguments that appeal to morality after saying that, because when you say that, you subscribe to the idea that all morality is equal. There's no real basis for determining whether one set of morals is superior to another, meaning you have no right to talk about any of your morals or other people adapting those morals when you supposedly believe yours to be equal to everyone else's. You're probably watching this video saying, well, my morality is based on the universal principles of empathy or human dignity or the non-aggression principle or whatnot, but by stating this, you've inherently contradicted yourself by implicitly rejecting pure subjectivity and suggesting the existence of universal objective moral truths. Unless you're ready to accept Ben Shapiro's morals as being of equal value to Vosh, you have become a hypocrite.
A lot of times you'll get into debates with people and they'll try and back you into a corner. And they'll say, so you believe that murder isn't objectively wrong? And you'll go, no, I do not believe that murder is objectively wrong. Well, I'm done arguing with someone who thinks that murder isn't objectively wrong. Really? I don't like rape. Do you like rape? No? Yeah, like I said, me either. Although I'm not going to deny its existence. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's not there. And that also applies to the absence of an objective moral system. Just because it sounds scary that there's no objective moral system, because that makes the world extremely unjust, doesn't mean it's not there. There is no objective moral system. Where does it come from? Societal evolution. The idea that your morals come from God doesn't really make sense. Where do my morals come from? God, even though I'm an atheist and my morals do not align with God's morals? Sure, I'm against murder. That's some pretty bad stuff. But I'm pro-LGBTQ. I'm pro people sleeping with whoever they want to sleep with as long as they're not in a committed relationship. That doesn't align with the stuff you read in the Bible. Where does that come from? Satan?
You're confusing having a universal moral framework to judge all other people's morals with everyone just inherently having the same moral principles. I'd say your other morals stem from a naive viewpoint of letting people do whatever they want as long as, at least in your view, they don't hurt anyone. I would say that the vast majority of our morals do come from God in some way. You don't necessarily have to be a Christian to accept those morals from the Bible, but most nations considered morally good have laws inspired by the Bible in some capacity. Oh, and also, yes, it does come from Satan. You just got done saying that the other beliefs you have contradict the Bible, so yes, it is satanic. I think you're forgetting that God gave us free will, and that although there are other people that believe in different morals, it doesn't disprove God, it just means that their morals are wrong.
Satan? And then what about psychopaths? What about people who go murder other people and have no moral qualms with it? Are they just an exception? Are they demon-possessed? Am I demon-possessed? Because I have a couple morals that do not align with God.
No, you're just not morally right. See how easy that was? Alright, I think that's gonna do it for today's video. Not gonna lie to you guys, it was supposed to be a longer video, but the problem was I was yapping for way too long already. Like, it was like, we're at 20 minutes now. It was gonna be 30 minutes or longer. I didn't want this to be another I Crave the Void documentary, basically. So, yeah, that's about it. And if you're watching this with a video of an empty room on the bottom right side, congratulations, you found the target for my video. He's following in his mentor's footsteps. Anyways, goodbye everyone. See you guys later. Hopefully not in a month, hopefully sooner than that.